wanted to show you get versus before and all these things. And now let us move on to the next topic. What I'm showing you is basically the, sorry, what we did last was the composite primary key example. So let me ask you, has everyone tried this? Have you run those test cases and checked composite primary key example? Akshay is saying yes. What about others? Some of you have done it. Okay, tell me quickly. Do you want me to run it and check it? Or will you do it in the lab? Now or lab? Tell me something. Yes, I don't understand. So now or lab? Lab is fine. Okay. So that will not waste the unnecessary time. And you just have to run the test cases and confirm. So here, now let me take you to the most important topic, exam point of view. I mean, exam interview objective, Spring AOP. And if you want, you may use it also in your project. So I had given you this before the break. So can you import, I had given you Spring Boot demos or something. So can you just import Spring Boot AOP? Import that project. And I hope I have updated this. Yeah, I have updated. Have you imported Spring Boot AOP? Done? Okay. As usual, open, it's not, okay. You open it and you will see. When you open com.app, this is not, I've not written it as a REST controller. This is your Spring MVC based web application. Does not matter at all. It's the same concept as for control. I mean, this you can in fact take this. This is our earlier controller, some customer controller and all that. You'll know this. So what I'm saying is, yeah, please open SRC main resources and change your database settings. Change email, not email, username and password. Tell me when you are done. Edited. So I'll continue. Don't do without that, otherwise it won't work. Okay. And now it's our own that topic tutorial, but a very small part. It's a known scenario. So open the controller. It comes to the home page controller. I'm going super fast on this because we have really done it 100 times. So here it shows the home page, forwards the client to index page. Go to, this is all view layer, JSP based view layer. So if you see SRC main web app, I have copied it from earlier one, views, index page. So other things you ignore, user login. And then with the user login, you can see the user controller and some of the services injected is user service. And then it is checking whether it is a customer, administrator, etc. So it is your familiar part of what? Your topic, that content management system. You got the feed, you got it checked. Don't have to check other things. I've not brought in the full thing. This was copied from one of these earlier days. Understood what this web application is about? Yes or no? Is it clear? This is, we have really developed it for last almost a week or so. So now I'm taking you to a new topic in Spring called as aspect-oriented programming. So just a second. That project I have already shared. So here I'm showing you the README AOP. I'll share. All this is going to be shared. So everything starts with why, what is it, and all that. So aspect-oriented AOP stands for aspect-oriented programming. And trust me, you are going to see again, you are going to hear the words such as proxies and all that. Only thing is, earlier it was Hibernate who was generating the proxies in case of, to represent the unfetched data. Here, your Spring container will be generating. So let me say this properly. So why AOP? First, an important question. Answer is separation. So read this. Separating cross-cutting concerns. This is all AOP terms. These are all the AOP terms. So cross-cutting concerns means what? repetitive tasks. You can say boilerplate code. So separating cross-cutting concerns, separating repetitive tasks from your either core business logic, or it can be your request handling logic or your persistence logic also. So when I say these things, you don't understand immediately. So let me have a communication with you. Let me ask you some questions. Have we before we are talking AOP, we have not yet applied any aspects. We have not yet applied any AOP. So even before AOP, are we enjoying the separation between request handling logic versus business logic versus data access logic? Boolean question, yes or no? Answer is yes. How? We are creating separate packages, separate layers. You got add controller, REST controller having the request handling logic. You got a service layer for business logic. You got a data access logic in a repository. All statements clear? And how we are managing the loose coupling between these two layers? We are not having any tightly coupled architecture at all. So how are we managing the loose coupling between these layers? Tell me. Dependency injection, very right. So instead of controller as a dependent object, creating its dependency, which is your service layer, who is automatically creating the dependency and making it available to us? Who is creating the dependency and wiring it in the code? Quickly, Spring container, what else? Okay, and how do you achieve this? With one annotation, @auto-wire. You got me? You understood me correctly? So this level of separation we have already achieved. Okay. Now let me ask you something. See, already you have seen things. I'm just highlighting things in front of you. So focus on controller layer. Okay. Focus on request handling controller. It could be a controller. It could be a REST controller. You know, both are the same. So REST controller is equal to add controller plus response body annotation on the return types of request handling methods, right? So both are the same. So listen to this. Suppose there are like numbers, 10 controllers having 5 request handling methods each. Each of this request handling method may have some errors, may have some exceptions. So in short, what is that cross-cutting concern? What is that repetitive logic which is required to be added in 10 into 5, 50 request handling methods? Which is that cross-cutting concern which you have to add? Answer is try and catch. So have we added those 50 try-catch blocks, or have we done it in a centralized exception handling manner or a global exception handling manner? Answer is in a centralized manner. So what did we do? Okay, how did we achieve it? You already know. Controller advice, exception handler, extending from response entity, exception handler, etc., etc. That was yesterday's story. But the point is, haven't we extracted the exception handling logic in the request handling layer or in the controller layer and separated it nicely? Answer is yes. That is that cross-cutting concern. Okay, keep it with you. Now another one here, persistence. Okay, so let me say this. Anytime you are using either Hibernate or JPA or Spring Data JPA, you know, finally it is the Hibernate as a persistence provider. So anytime you want to call any CRUD operations, you know, we have done much more than CRUD, but anyway, some CRUD operation, Hibernate insists that CRUD operation should take place within a transaction. So what is that repetitive cross-cutting concern, which is what is present in that data access logic or a DAO layer? Which is that boilerplate code, which is that repetitive code, which is that cross-cutting concern, which is there in the persistence layer? Tell me. What is it you have to do in the, had to do rather, past tense? What is it we had to do before we entered Spring Hibernate? Quickly. So, okay, the answer is transaction management code. We had to manage our own transactions, isn't it? So what is it we had to say? get the session from session factory, begin a transaction, try and catch, commit the transaction, roll back. So tell me, isn't this the repetitive boilerplate cross-cutting concern? So are we adding now the transaction management code in every method of a DAO layer? Answer is absolutely not. The entire DAO layer implementation is gone. What we are having is only the DAO layer interface, repository interface. So in short, are we repeating ourselves? Are we having a cross-cut? I mean, are we copy pasting? Are we adding this repetitive code, or have we removed it? Have you removed it? Is the question. You have removed it. You got that? So, okay, the next topic after Spring AOP is going to be the most important topic of today, Spring Security. That is 100% project requirement. I mean, of course, there is in the contents also they have mentioned, but that I want you to add it in your projects. If you take Java, anywhere you take any project, you please add the security. Without security, the project is like it loses its glamour. Anyway, so coming back to the point, listen to this. Any application you take, okay, be it your container management, not container, content management system, or banking, or your whatever, bookshop, e-commerce, anything, do you need to secure the web application ideally, or will you just leave it without unsecured? Of course, security. What is security consisting of? Authentication, confirming if you are what you say you are, confirming your credentials, authentication. And what is the next step of security? After, if you are authenticated, if you are not authenticated, authentication failure. But if you are authenticated, authorization. Everyone knows role-based authorization and all that. Okay, so checking whether, okay, you have logged in, you are whatever you say you are, but do you have the permission? Do you have the access control? I mean, do you have the access to these resources? For example, admin can add a tutorial. I'm talking about CMS. Admin can add a tutorial, delete a tutorial, update tutorial contents, add user, remove user, etc. But when the customer has logged in, what can customer do? Can he or she add a new tutorial or drop a tutorial or modify? Can't. They can't. What they can do is they just can read the tutorials. Are you understanding me? So authentication, authorization are the hearts of security. Okay, so if all your web applications are going to require it, isn't it a cross-cutting concern? Isn't it a repetitive task, repetitive logic to be followed across all the layers? I mean, all the projects. Agreeing or not agreeing? Okay, so that is what you're going to learn later. So coming back to the point, what is this AOP? What is this aspect-oriented programming gives us is separation between the core logic and the repetitive tasks. Please don't get confused. You have learned dependency injection for all these, whatever, 8 days since we started Spring. I don't know, 8-9 days almost. And I'm introducing AOP to separate, to have the separation within a particular layer. I'll see if I can find the diagram first. That diagram, where the difference are given, not this 14-day, 49 days. 2 seconds. I'll find. I think I found it. Okay, so I found it fortunately. See, here, forget about JSP Java Bean that we have left it long back behind. So here, what kind of separation DI gives us, dependency injection gives us, and what kind of separation your AOP, aspect-oriented programming, is going to give us. Okay, so what is the separation your dependency injection gave us was separating request handling logic from servicing logic, that from the data access logic. Understood me completely? Yes or no? Whereas when we apply AOP, by the way, you have already seen the aspects. I just have to pinpoint that these are the ready-made aspects. 2 minutes. So what is it your AOP, aspect-oriented programming, going to give you? Again, the separation. But separation across these layers, or the separation of cross-cutting concerns within a particular layer? Across the layer, inter-layers or intra-layers. I don't think that term exists, but the point is within the layers. So coming back to the point, you have so many controllers, request handling controllers. We plucked out the exception handling logic from all the methods and nicely separated into which class? The class annotated with controller advice. Learn to connect the dots. So that you feel you enjoy it. The whole concept becomes clearer. So this controller advice, or that whatever we did, global exception handler, is nothing but a ready-made aspect given to you using Spring Framework. I'll repeat the last line again. I said, in order to separate the recurring logic, repetitive tasks, cross-cutting concerns, all same. So in order to remove this cross-cutting concern is an AOP term. To remove that cross-cutting or repetitive exception handling logic, we extracted it outside and put it in a controller advice annotated class. So this is an example of Spring supplied ready-made aspect. So the aspect of, the English word aspect, the aspect of request handling in the request handling controller, and the aspect of, or the point of, or the logic of exception handling in that global exception handler. Understood or lost? Understood the term so far? Okay, because I have to build a story as always. So next one. So here, okay, I'll take the example of that Spring security, which is you have yet to see. Next topic is Spring security. It is again, I've decided in the proper connected manner. So when we apply, we already agreed, or rather you already agreed, that any decent web application should be secured. Means what? All my endpoints, suppose I'm talking in REST controller, all my endpoints should be guarded, should be protected routes, should be protected endpoints or unprotected. Of course, protected. Are you getting me? Nobody should be able to directly access my tutorial list and modify it. Agreeing or not agreeing? Protection is required, and that protection is nothing but security, authentication, authorization stuff. Only thing is, all these days, we were doing all the efforts because we did not have Spring Security Framework added. Spring Security jar wasn't added. We did not discuss it. So whatever you are doing, that authentication authorization will be done by Spring Security Framework. So security is yet another ready-made aspect supplied by Spring Framework. Are you enjoying it currently? Not. The next topic is Spring Security. Okay, so that. But now the next thing. Earlier in the Hibernate days, our DAO layer used to be extremely thick. What was that bulk of the boilerplate code about? The repetitive cross-cutting concern, nothing but transaction management. The moment we entered the Spring architecture, Spring framework, the first selling point of Spring architecture is complete reduction of boilerplate code. So in short, what was that cross-cutting concern? What was it? Repetitive logic, repetitive task, which we were writing in all the draw layer methods, transaction management. Understanding me? So now there is a Spring supplied transaction manager bean. Guys, you have seen all of this. So I hope you are connecting to whatever I'm saying. So in before Spring Boot days, in the legacy Spring application, we had to configure Hibernate persistence XML file where I had to configure the transaction manager bean. When you come to Spring Boot says, forget about configuration. I will automatically configure it for you. And that is when I explained you the concept of Spring Boot starters, automatic configuration. The moment Spring Boot found the Hibernate jar in the runtime class path, which were the beans Spring Boot automatically configured? Can I dare to ask a question? I'll repeat the question. I said, the moment the Spring Boot saw the Hibernate jars, some JPA jars in the runtime class path, which Spring beans, it automatically configured. So starter is what we added, Srinivas. Your answer is wrong. Yes, Rajveer, you are right. Data source was the first bean, which is a connection pool. That was injected in. We are not using session factory, but we are definitely using internally entity manager factory. So data source, connection pool, entity manager factory, equivalent to your session factory. And then there was a transaction manager, this thing, all configured by Spring. And then you could see a complete reduction of boilerplate code. So the point is that transaction logic was removed. So listen to this, what I'm saying correctly. That exception handling via controller advice is an aspect Spring supplied to be added with, which was removed from the controller layer. In the DAO layer, I talked about, okay, securities. You are yet to learn the security. You will see authentication, authorization. We will no longer add it in the controller layer. We will nicely decouple it, and you will see something like Spring Security configuration classes and all, and we'll customize it. Okay, so all of that. So that is security is another aspect, the separation of concerns. And in the DAO layer, just now I said transaction management. But guys, now focus on your business logic layer. In service layer, the business logic layer itself, there can be some repetitive tasks. There can be some cross-cutting concerns. So till now, we have not added any separation of concerns in the service logic, in the service layer. And that is what the AOP, that is when you create your custom aspects. Custom aspects means your own aspects will be able to give you. So to wrap up this picture, I'm saying dependency injection gave you the separation between the layers, which separated your request handling logic from your business logic to that of data access logic. Whereas the aspect-oriented programming or AOPs or your aspects are going to separate the repetitive code within a particular layer. So which is the aspect you enjoyed ready-made? Controller advice. See the word advice. That global exception handler class was giving the advice to the controller that in case of this particular exception, such as user not found exception, this response entity will be sent. Or in case of what was that? Handle method argument. Method argument not valid exception. One such response entity was sent likewise. And similarly, you have enjoyed the automatic built-in another aspect in form of transaction manager. So now next 1 hour or half an hour, whatever it is, I don't know. So we will spend it building the aspects, creating our own custom aspects to what? To remove the repetitive code, repetitive tasks or cross-cutting concerns and separate it, in a class whose name itself is aspect class. So that is what we are going to learn, or that is what this AOP is all about. Okay. So which are the ready-made aspects? Your Spring framework is already giving you, or Spring container is already giving you. Transaction management, which you enjoyed in the DAO layer. Security, which you will start enjoying a little later. And exception handling via controller advice. Is this highlighted statement clear? That these are what? Ready-made built-in aspects or programmer provided aspects? Built-in or custom? Answer is built-in. Of course, you have to configure things such as add controller advice and all, but you got them. But now what we are going to do is, and just read this. It's I hope a clear-cut what? Explanation. It's not okay. Anyway, you read it. I'll not disturb you. So I'll start reading along with you. It is not, okay, what is AOP? It's a programming style. It's a programming paradigm. So are we talking about replacing object-oriented principles or practices by AOP? Absolutely not. They complement each other. They supplement each other. So when we talk about object-oriented practices, long back, on the first day of core Java, wherever the heart of object oriented, the basic unit of encapsulation is class, and from that we create instances of class and whatever. So here the basic unit of modularity here is the aspect. Aspect is a class binary, but we call it. And like I said so many times, DI helps you to decouple business logic from data access logic from whatever your controller layer, whereas AOP helps you to decouple repetitive cross-cutting concerns is equal to repetitive boilerplate logic, boilerplate code from the objects that they affect. So this is the example. Transactional code nicely extracted and kept in the transaction manager bean. Security related code will be supplied by your security manager, Spring Security Framework. And exception handling code, yesterday we already separated in a controller advice. So what is the next thing? So these are all built-in aspects, Spring supplied. So, but to get you the understanding, we are going to create our own aspects, and we are going to see how they affect, or how they work with the, how the whole aspect-oriented programming works. Okay, so there is this story I have picked up from a very good book. That reminds me, I remember I have shared Hibernate books. Have I shared in any of the help files Spring ebooks? I keep sharing a lot. I don't even know whether people look at it. So I think you don't know about it. So just look at it. I'll also look at it, and I'll share very good Spring books. One of them is Spring in Action. Okay, so people don't know about this. So people started, I think, searching for it now. So guys, anyway, so whatever I've taken is not my credit. Its credit goes to this thing, the author of Spring in Action. So coming back to the point here in the module I have, anyway, I'll check. I'll check myself. Anyway, so the story goes like this. Your manager, to whomever you are reporting, is asking you to develop your web application, let's say, or whatever, REST API application, stock trading application. So you are very happy doing this, because that is why you are absorbed as a role of SD, software developer, and your job is to develop a functionality, develop an application. But the next day manager walks in and says, fine, you're developing stock trading application, cool, very good. But now you have to write down whatever steps you have taken to achieve the result, and how long each and every step has taken for you. How long is every step is taken, has taken the time for you. So tell me, happy situation or unhappy situation? This is a normal logical conversation. Of course, as a programmer, we hate any documentation part. So it's a normal tendency, nothing abnormal. If you love documentation, that is, this thing exception. So the point is, guys, let me not waste time in the analogy. So this part you will hate definitely. Sorry, I don't want to break. Oh, look at this. Sorry. So here, so of course you feel unhappy. So your manager looks at your unhappy face. Manager has to keep the subordinates happy, and sleeps over it, and comes to you the next day and says, okay, fine. I see your whatever displeasure. So, okay, you continue developing your job. But here, he calls your peer, peer, competitor, friend, enemy, whatever. Like, okay, just joking. So the point is, another person in the room and says that this person is going to shadow you. Okay, is going to monitor you. So he's going to be after you, watching down, taking notes, which mistakes you are doing, how many times you refer to Stack Overflow site, how many times you Googled, etc., etc. So tell me, happy or unhappy? This is a way to connect to AOP. That's why I'm spending or investing time. So I hope you are unhappy. Yes. Nobody likes continuous monitoring. Who likes micromanagement and all? That's why you hate your parents, maybe. So the point is, like, no, you think that, okay, on one side you are happy that you are doing your normal assigned work, but somebody's continuously on your head, on your back, checking that what you are doing and whatever. Okay, so partially happy, partially unhappy, I hope. So manager makes a note of it. Story. Let me cut short the story. Let's come to AOP. So he says, fine. He comes to you next day and he says, okay, nobody is going to monitor you. Okay. He says, there is no such person who will monitor you. And you keep doing your normal work. So tell me, happy? Finally? 100% happy. But manager is lying to you. Manager needs to monitor the progress. Manager needs to know how whatever performance meter or whatever, like your salary or your increment or bonus depends on that, like how efficient you are. So just as this part doesn't come from Spring in Action, this is my own thinking. So he hires a ghost genie, you know, and genie is a thing which you can't feel, but and he assigns the task to the genie or whatever ghost or phantom or whatever you say, and he says, okay, go and monitor this person. Okay, so ghostly stories and all that. So the point is, you as a programmer, are you aware of this third party presence? You are not. On the other hand, is the manager getting his or her job done of that monitoring the employees or monitoring the programmer? Yes. And then manager thinks, anyway, I have hired a genie. I have entered in that whatever supernatural or whatever world. Let me give the genie the task of not only managing one programmer, but entire my team. So that is aspects for you, not the ghost or not the genie. But when you enter aspect-oriented programming, I'll give you an analogy. Not analogy. Analogy was this. So tell me, were you are, I'm getting back to software world, not leaving the supernatural world. So I'm asking you, in this case, when we added the global exception handler, were your request handling controllers, were they aware of the fact that there is some global exception handler existing there? Aware or unaware? Of course, unaware. Are you understanding it? But your appointed genie slash controller advice annotated class was doing the perfect job of anytime any exception comes in, it was acting as an interceptor. See the word I'm using, interceptor, and doing the exception handling. So likewise, whenever your controller calls the transactional annotated method, you know, the annotated with a transactional, automatically, without your service layer, without your DAO layer being aware of that, your transaction was getting created, begun. So session was obtained or whatever, entity manager was obtained, then the L1 cache was created, transaction was begun. So now if you see our DAO layer or a service layer, are they aware of any transaction handling happening in the background? Aware or unaware? Same question I'm asking you, 100% unaware. So that is aspect-oriented programming for you. Okay. So this is the whole thing. So this is what it is. Even better, the last one. So Spring, the Craig Thomas. No, Craig Thomas is somebody else. Sorry, some other name I got it. So about whoever, Craig first name, the Spring in Action author. I don't remember the last name. So here, if you are totally unaware of that person, the watcher, the monitor, and that person was able to also observe and record not just your work, but any other person's work and time. That is separation of concern, separation of responsibilities, and that is what Spring gives you through the another project, through the not project, through the another topic called as AOP. And as I said, it is definitely not a competition. It is not a either or. Like either you choose OOP, I mean object-oriented practices, or AOP. It is a complementary. So here, this is okay. This is your Spring thing. But let me see this. Yeah. So recently we were talking about Hibernate proxies. So Hibernate proxies is the same concept of AOP. So Hibernate generates those dynamic proxies. Dynamic means runtime created proxies to what? To represent your data, which is maybe fetched or not fetched from the database. Whereas now you are going to learn Spring AOP. And as I said here, the similar functionality exists in so many frameworks. I don't know .NET, so I can't give you a .NET analogy. So, but I'm talking about Java technologies here. If you ever take up EJB, it's a faded technology, but in case you are supposed to work there, there's a concept of EJP object. In Struts web application framework, the whole concept is done with the something called as interceptors. Servlet filters you anyway will have to learn. Before I take you to Spring Security, you will see that Spring Security entry point is the chain of filters. So I'll tell you the servlet topic, servlet filters. And in Hibernate, okay, RMI you don't have, remote method invocation. There's a concept of stub. And here, finally, Hibernate had the solution in form of a proxy. So Hibernate framework works in a lazy manner. You know this now. If you call the session.load or any case of any to many association, what they return? Load typically returns you the uninitialized proxy, and any to many fetching results into collection of uninitialized proxies. So the same concept you're going to see with AOP using Spring Framework. Understood at least the point behind AOP? Why AOP is clear? Okay. So now come to the project again. So here, suppose your manager walks in. Okay, so this is to continue with my story. So you have developed a Spring-based web application, Spring Boot-based web application, and you're happy with yourself that I got the job done, content management system, whatever. But the manager says, fine, you have done it, great, cool, good job. But now he says that anytime there can be so many clients sending so many requests, right? So intercept each incoming request and we should log it. I'll repeat my statement again. I said the manager says, okay, for some reporting, for some generating reports and all, I have to, rather you have to, as a programmer, you have to intercept all incoming requests and give me a log of it. Okay. So if this is the requirement, and if you don't know about, anything about AOP, which is the layer you will have to modify? Simple question, simple answers, fast. If you want to intercept each and every incoming request, which is the layer you will have to modify? Is it a request handling controller? Don't say dispatcher servlet, because sometimes I get an answer as dispatcher servlet, which is a true answer, by the way. But dispatcher servlet, you have not written, it is Spring supplied. You remember dispatcher servlet is the entry point. So request handling controller, you are absolutely right. But what if you have 10 request handling controllers having 10 request handling methods, get mapping, post mapping, etc. How many places you will have to add the logger code? If you have 10 controllers having 10 request handling methods each, how many times in how many places you will have to insert the logger code? 100 is the answer. So do you want the answer as 100 or do you want the answer as 1? 1. And that too, I as a programmer, I don't want to call it. I want it automatically called by the Spring container. You understand the requirement? That is where we understand, or sorry, that is where we enter AOP, aspect-oriented programming. Okay, next one. Manager says, you have written so many business logic methods. Okay, so currently hardly, but whatever, I mean, you can always extend this. I just copied a little portion. So you have got service layer, full-fledged business logic layer, great. But now I want to intercept service handling request, and I want to find out what was the outcome of every business logic, business logic method. In short, did it result into failure? Then I want some alert. Did it result into success? I want the successful result, etc. So again, the same question. If you have, let's say some number, I think you got the math. It's a product. If you got 10 business logic, 10 service layer classes having, let's say, 10 business logic methods each, you will have to intercept, you will have to copy paste the same boilerplate code into 100 methods. Understanding my point completely? Yes or no? So instead, we don't even want to do it once. We will write the logger code separately. So that much of code you have to write. But will you have to call it yourself? From each of those 100 intercepting points, answer is no. That is where the AOP comes into. I mean, that is where AOP has your back. That is where the AOP helps you. So read further. There are certain terms in aspect-oriented programming. You can read that later. Okay. So the terms are here. This is where the maximum questions are asked, whatever people want to, because they are the little weird terms. So first term is advice. You remember recently using this word anywhere? Ringing any bells? Advice, I said. Controller advice. So your global exception handler class was giving the advice to all the request handling controllers from your web application that like we say, I have your back, like I'm handling your exception handling. Okay, so that way. So coming back to the point, what is advice? Advice is nothing but the action, which is nothing but that repetitive code is equal to cross-cutting concern to be taken. This advice can be applied either before any logic. So today I'm going to focus on business, I mean service layer, because you have already seen other aspects. So either before your business logic or after your business logic, or there's a special aspect called as around. Around means what? Before and after, around that business logic. See the English word around, wrapping that business logic. Okay. So like already said. So here, Spring supplied cross-cutting concern, which is automatic transaction management, will begin the transaction before your down layer method, and it will if the in case of all good, all success, it will commit the transaction. It means Spring container, Spring supplied bean, commit the transaction in the same in success case, roll it back in case of failure, and what it will do in either of the cases, whether it is commit or rollback, session will be closed so that pulled out connection returns to the pool. So coming back to the point, guys, advice is all W questions. Advice typically describes what is that action to be taken and when it is to be taken. So that is the advice, and the example which I'm showing you is the logger advice, logging advice. Okay, so advice is what and when. Keep it extremely light and clear, what and when. So I'll come to the join point in a minute. I'll just tell you the different types of advices which can appear in your aspect class. You have not written any aspect class. I'm giving you a ready-made demo looking at the time available. Anyway, you read this and I'll talk to you. Okay, so it's like 5 annotations. That is all you have to manage. I mean, as far as advices, and then I'll talk about point cut annotations and all that. Anyway, so it's a easy one. Answer is right here. So when you say add before, you are going to place it on the place it in the cross-cutting method, advising method above that particular method. In short, it is a method level annotation to make it simple. So when will this cross-cutting concern or when this advice will be applied? Before execution of business logic or after, or always, or whatever? Answer is so easy. I've given you the answers here. I just want to, read it. Want you to read it. Please make a mental note to go through this readme along with the project whenever you are preparing for exams, I'm saying. Okay, so next one. Here, after returning. So when this particular advice will be applied, if and only if the business logic returns in the successful manner. Any logic to where you are advising returns in a successful manner. So can you tell me, in our transactional discussion, what must be happening before your down layer method gets called, or before your annotated, that transactional annotated method gets called? What must be the advice here before advice? Are you understanding my question? I'm asking you an example. What must be written by Spring container? Begin a transaction. Exactly. Okay, a small thing. Get a current session and begin a transaction. Perfect. What it must have written in after returning advice? Simple questions to check your understanding. Commit a transaction naturally. What it will do, okay, after throwing is if the business logic returns into what do you say, results into failure. What it must have written in after throwing? Roll back a transaction. This is one example, guys. I'm just preparing you for the our one. I mean custom aspect. At after, what it is? At after is like your finally block. Are you relating to try catch finally? Guys, session closed, exactly. So here in try catch finally, if I talk in, after returning means end of the try block. No exception, it survives. After throwing is equivalent to your catch block. And at after is equivalent to your finally block, which always executes, right? So that way, and at around is the one which is going to get called before the business logic as well as after. So at this point, sometimes I get a question from a student, from a participant basically. Then why don't you add before and add after? Answer is add before advice is not as strong, as capable, as powerful. Meaning, if something goes wrong in the before advice, will the control still go to the business logic method execution? Answer is yes. So before advice doesn't stop the control to reach to the business logic, whereas in around type of advices, you can make it stop. Okay, so around is the most powerful, which is combo of before and after, and which can also control the execution of the flow. So this was your advice. So when you talk about advice, what is it we are telling is what is to be done and when it is to be done. Now the next term is join point. So what it highlights is where part. So, okay, you have written some, let us say logger advice. That is what I'm showing you. So logging advice. So you have written that logging advice code. I'll show you the typical way. With Lombok, there is an annotation. Without Lombok also, there is a way out. Don't worry. So coming to the point, here we have supplied what and when, but you have to tell Spring Container that which business logic methods should be advised. Or simply said, this particular advice which you have written earlier has to be applied to which business objects, or forget business objects, which methods. So here the where clause means where part is answered by join point. So as far as Spring AOP is concerned, it only allows you to intercept. Guys, it is nothing but interception. Intercept the method execution. But there is another framework called as Aspect J, Aspect for Java framework, which allows you even the join points at class loading time, constructor time, your class unloading time, etc. So we are focusing only on Spring AOP. But like I gave you the story earlier, if your manager is going to appoint something like a ghost, why would he appoint a ghost only for looking at one person? He would better do it for the whole team. In the same manner, there won't be a single join point. There would be collection of join points, meaning the advice which you have written, for example, controller advice. Is it meant for only one request handling controller or all the controllers in your web application? Single or all? Answer is all. So point cut is typically collection of all the methods expression where the method call, business logic call should be intercepted. So for point cut, all these things happen with the annotation. There is an annotation at the rate point cut, and this is called as point cut definition language. So let me explain it from left to right. So here in Spring AOP, what is it you can intercept? Your choices are compilation, class loading, instantiation, or method execution, or all of above, none of above. What is the only thing you can intercept? Answer is only method execution. So when you see the keyword, this is all a point cut definition language. It's a proper keyword. So execution means what? Method execution. Okay. Now start solving it from left to right. So the first part which starts after execution within the bracket is return type of the method. So whatever advice logic, whatever advice you are writing, let's say logging advice, security advice, transaction advice, or what was that? Controller advice, etc., will be applicable to any method or only those method returning a vendor. Any or specific. A specific one, only those methods whose return type is vendor. Vendor is vendor Pojo. Now, anyone can understand this so easily. Will it intercept all the methods from all the classes from any package or a specific package? You can understand. I'm narrowing down the point cut. I'm just narrowing down the where part. So only to the package bank. But what does this star mean? All the classes, any class within this package bank. Okay, there can be 10 classes in that package. So see the breadth means wide by width or breadth, whatever you call it, of the point cut. So I'll repeat. The return type of the method should be vendor. It can be only from the package, comma bank, any class, and next star means any method. So see the width of your this thing, point cut. I can intercept, I as in this advice logic can intercept any method, returning a vendor, accepting a double. So this is an argument, this is a return type, but it can be specific method or any method, any method. Specific class or any class, but belonging to which package? Controller, okay, which package? A specific package, com.app.bank. So this is how we'll be defining. You'll be seeing, I'm giving you a ready-made code, a point cut definition. Okay. Now, some more terms and I'll show you the exact code. So advisor, see the English terms. Advisor is the one who advises, right? So advisor is a combo of advice and point cut into a single unit. So I'll show you a ready-made class. That class is nothing but aspect. So aspect is nothing but the class which contains what is to be done, means which advice, which cross-cutting, which same logic has to be given. Example is your global exception handler was your aspect, guys. So which advice, that is what is to be done, when it is to be done, that is before or after or around or whatever, and where it has to be done. That means point cut definition also will be there. So advice logic, what and when and where part comes from point cut. So which is the this thing, which is the annotation to tell Spring container whatever follows is going to be full of cross-cutting concern. The annotation is at aspect. But when we use your special annotation yesterday at controller advice, it was anyway telling the Spring container that this is a controller specific advice. In short, it is going to advise only the controller layer that way. And the target and the proxy and the weaving little later. You won't understand these terms so fast. So now go back to, I've given you sufficient details. Now just run this project. I have not yet enabled the aspects. You can see there is an aspect code, but I hope I have not. Just give me a second. I've commented on that. Yeah, I have commented sufficiently. So close that. Don't even look at those aspects. I'll explain it in a couple of minutes. So just run this project. It's a web application. So right click, you can say run as standard thing, Spring Boot app. com.app.application is not found. Great. Why it happened? Anyway, let me not waste your time. Right click, run as Spring Boot app. Still the same problem. Oh, I must have cleaned the project. 2 minutes. Are you also getting the same error? Application class not found. It is running, right? I had cleaned it. Anyway, don't worry. Don't this. as. Don't worry about what I'm doing. I'm just building the project from scratch. Okay, so it has built it. And now let me run this. Right click, run as app. Okay, so it has launched this. This is our content management system, a very small portion copied. So you know all this, you can check. I forgot to tell you, if your 8080 port has a problem, you know, you reconfigure it on 9090, 7070 something. And this is our good old, okay, I've changed the context part to Spring Boot Wave. So pick this up, go to the client side. This is a web application. Web browser is the client, right? So here, localhost, I'm running it currently on 8080. Okay. So have you seen this user login? You got this login page and all working fine. And this is your, I've not filled this thing here, admin part and all that. So just log in as a, I think, kiran@gmail.com and whatever, I mean, you might have changed. So this, you know, I'm not going to explain the CMS system. You just tell me if this is working or not working. If it is not working, that means somewhere, you know, if it is working, then I don't want to waste time. Okay. But that is not what was interest. This we have done it a couple of days back. I want you to look at the console and tell me, you can actually, you know, or rather, if you don't want to do it, fine, I will do that for you. I'm just picking it up. Oh, not this. In the new notepad. Okay, so here, take a look at the console output and tell me, are we doing any logging so far? Is the logging aspect, are we doing the logging part? You remember the instruction of the manager. Manager has told us that any request which is coming to this particular web application, be it a homepage controller, be it a customer controller or user controller, should be logged. So are we logging it currently or not? Can you see some any logging details? It's a Boolean question. Logging or no logging? Guys, why you are taking so much time in answering simple questions? No logging. I can't see anything. This show login form and all is our own debugging points. We are not logging the every endpoint, whatever request. So currently answer is no logging. So if I ask you the question, if you want to add the logging code, what all I'll have to modify? Yes, please. Which layers first of all? A controller, a DAO, POJO service. Which layer will have to modify? If I want to intercept each and every incoming request, which layer? Fast. I've already said this, controller. And currently, this was a very tiny part of our CMS. Still, I had customer controller, homepage controller, user controller. All have to be intercepted. And not just this, this has got one method, but you know, so many methods we have written. Each and every method, you have to call the logging advice. Understood my point? So is it better to add this, copy paste this cross-cutting concern repetitive task in 10,000 different places, or let it be done, the logic you write once and let it be automatically called like your ghost. By the ghost is nothing but a Spring container. So that is what we want to achieve. So now open the aspects package and open the first aspect, no, not after AOP later, user access aspect. So instructions for those whose Lombok is not working. If SLF4J is a short form, simple logging for Java. I'll take it. It's a Lombok annotation, which stands for simple logging. Actually, it is simple logging facade, fascia for Java. And here, if it is not working, in some of you are still struggling with that Lombok issues, I guess. So for them, comment this annotation and uncomment this line 18, where you are explicitly calling the logger and you say control shift 2. Okay, so those who are having problems with the Lombok issues and all, meet me in the lab. I'll be there in the lab, of course. I'll tell you. I've told you here. Or just a second. One I'll do with SLF4, one I'll do without this. Give me a second. Okay, so here I'm talking to those people whose Lombok is not working. Fine. So here, comment this, and here, uncomment this line, and simply replace log by logger. Or okay, wait. I have a better idea. Here itself, I'll change the variable name and simply say, oh. Stop the application, please. And control shift O. And here, wait a second. Let us see which one org slf4 logger is. I guess we should choose 2 seconds only. And com.sun.org slf4 2 minutes. 2 minutes, give me. Okay, so this works. Okay, I'll show you the import list, guys. If you use this Lombok annotation, nothing is required. But if you don't, I'll send you. All these dependencies are automatically pulled in by your Spring Boot starter, Spring Boot container. So I'll explain the point. Till now, if we wanted to add any debugging statement, how we were doing it? Quick question, quick answer. I'm killing 2 birds in one thrown or whatever. One is the logging and one is aspect. Okay, so sysout. Girish already answered me. So, but if you say, listen to this, stop your coding. If your project is containing 20,000 sysouts, they are all cool, they are all great in the debugging phase. But once it is developed, once it is deployed, and it is the time to show it to your to your evaluator, interviewer, do you want your console flooded with all those SOPs or you want your console clean? Guys, respond fast. Okay, clean. So what is it you'll have to hunt? You will have to hunt each and every class and comment those sysouts. Understanding me? Agreeing with me? So people don't do that in a professional world. People use logging frameworks. Okay. So is logging framework part of your contents? Unfortunately not, but I'm still showing you whether you want it or not. So there is these dependencies, SLF4, simple logging for Java. Actually, it stands for simple logging facade. Facade means the fascia. Before, it's just a cover, and behind that, the actual code or implementations are. Okay, so this is your SLF4 library, logging library. And there are 2 classes. One is the logger class, and one is you can see this. This is the interface, main user point and all that. And this is the supplier of it is a factory. You have seen session factory. Yesterday, you have seen entity manager factory. Yesterday, you saw REST template builder and all similar. So here is a logger factory. And if you see the method get logger, what it takes is the class, whichever class you want to add the logging functionality. So you can remove this and you can simply say get class. So I'll repeat the statements. Have I come to the AOP part yet? No. What is it I'm discussing with you guys? Logging in Java. You can Google logging in Java. You will see so many articles. Nice. You say Spring Boot or whatever, logging in Java is sufficient. So coming back to the point, if your Lombok is working, all this code reduces to one annotation, simple logging for Java @ and Lombok does it for you. Worst case scenario, Lombok is not working, you write an extra line. So what is it you get is the logger instance, and this logger interface has got lot of methods. So one of the method is info, one is error, one is debug. One is debug. So now here the default level of logging for Spring Framework is info. Info stands for what? Information. Okay. So tomorrow when you want to this thing, your debugging is done and you don't want your Spring Boot console cluttered with all these informational messages. What will you do? Will you hunt down in those 10,000 classes looking for the word log.info or something else? Answer. Let your common sense guide you. Do you think you will still have to hunt down those 10,000 classes, 10,000 methods and remove or comment this log.info, or will there be a quicker, simpler solution? There is a simpler solution. Guess smartly. What could be the simpler solution? 26 comment. Then you are then you did not understand my English statement. Then if I have to comment hunt down this, how it is different than my SOP? It's the same point. So the correct answer is, guys, you can change the logging level. So what is the default logging level for a Spring framework or Spring application or Spring Boot application? It is info. And here you can change it to error. So you tell me, which is more critical? Info is more critical. Does a debug also more critical, or error level is more critical? Understanding or lost totally? I hope you are there. Error. In short, if you change the logging level to be error, the debugging messages will appear. Informative messages, log.info type messages will appear, or only error messages will appear on the console? Obvious question, obvious answer. So, do you have to hunt down these 10,000 log.info messages or simply change the logging level? What's the answer? Simply change the logging level, and I'll show you from application.properties becomes so easy. So, this was the explanation of logger. So, now come to the aspect part of it. Now come to the aspect thing. So, how do you tell the, okay, so I'll ask you again the same question. Understand my English. I mean, understand my question and respond. So take a look at all these messages and tell me, what is my logging level currently? What is the current logging level of our application info? Agreed with this thing? Okay. But now tell me that this particular, okay, these are by default. See this. Live reload starter, Tomcat web server is telling you the happenings, information. Hikari pool started, completed. So these are all the informational messages coming. But tell me, guys, this message, which message? Checking for user access and allowing execution. This logging message appearing or not appearing? Is our own custom logger, custom logging messages, are they appearing on the console or not appearing? Check it, Control F and check it. Okay, I'll tell you ahead of time. Anyone wants to answer? Simple question, simple answer. Are these, okay, are you not sure what is going on, guys? It's the easiest question. Go to your console, go to the top of it. I just copied it, Control F, Control V, and tell me, is the message coming or is the message not coming? This was the easiest answer of the lot. And I wanted a quick response. Of course, it is not coming. And why? Because where we have enabled aspects yet. We have not yet hired that ghost or supernatural or genie or whatever you call it. So that is yet to be added. Just one annotation I've commented for your understanding. Okay, so let us go on faster here. So how do you tell Spring Container whatever follows is containing what is to be done? What is that cross-cutting concern? In my case, logger aspect, logging, when it is to be done, and to which methods it should intercept which business logic methods or which any methods. The answer is at aspect annotation. Okay, so you don't have to add any new starters. When you add Spring Boot starter, it is automatically pulled in. But why it is still not working? Any guesses? Why it is not still? Why those actions, that logging actions? Why this logger code is still not coming quickly? No, wrong answer. My your Shobham, your looks like confused. Here, the logging level is okay. I am calling log.info and other informational messages are coming, but my logging methods are informational methods are not coming. The answer is in front of you guys, not 14, 15. Forget it. You have not yet told the Spring container that this is a Spring Bean containing cross-cutting concern to be managed by the container. So these are the tricks I do when I share the ready-made code. So here, uncomment this line. Point cut definition will not be required now. Okay, so you can say Control Shift O. And please choose that component annotation from OS stereotype. Okay, so these are the two compulsory annotations. One to tell that this is the aspect class containing cross-cutting, and this is to tell the Spring container that this is a Spring Bean whose life cycle you have to manage. You as in container has to manage. So old questions, good old questions. Singleton or prototype, lazy or eager? You know these answers, I mean already. Of course it is singleton and eager. Okay, now don't uncomment it, don't touch it till you understand what is going on. So here I have created the logger instance where I can use the logging method. Now start answering the questions. I'll highlight and you tell me. When I say add before, this cross-cutting concern is going to be called before method execution, after, around, before and after, or whatever. It's a simple question. Answer is of course before. Okay, and so when the when part of the question is answered, when before the method execution. Next, what W question, what has to be executed? This particular logging information, this logger aspect has to be executed. And now the last part is where. So how do you supply where? There are two ways. One is you uncomment this and give a point cut definition using at point cut annotation. But here I'm using this point cut information, this where information only in one. So in such case, you don't waste your time. You directly give the argument here itself. So let me start asking you, what is it is going to intercept? Method execution or class loading or whatever. What is it going to intercept, guys? Only method execution stands for what? Method execution. Now, what should be the return type? Any return type or a specific type? Any return type. But what is it going to intercept? Request handling controller, business logic layer, or your DAO layer? Controller layer. You got this? I told you the requirement. My manager told me before end of the day, which doesn't take end of the day, which takes 5 minutes, that intercept all incoming requests and give me the details like where it was done and all that. So coming back to the point here. So what does this star means? A specific class in controller, such as only home page or all the controllers. Answer is all the controllers. And here, any specific method or all the methods of all the controllers, all the methods. And here 2 dots means nothing but any argument. So let that controller method have model map as an argument or at request param or path variable. I don't care. My manager has told me to intercept all incoming requests. So where all it is going to hit? It is going to hit all the methods from homepage controller, whatever. You got this? And now I told you just now, what is join point? Join point tells you the information about which method is getting intercepted. So join point is an interface. You can see this. It is coming from Aspect J, that is aspect oriented programming for Java, another framework. Spring just uses some parts of it. So join point is the interface which will give you the complete details about the method that it is intercepting, which is what my manager asked me to do. So there is a what is it called, toString for this. So here when you say join point, it will give you the what is it called? Implementation classes to string, and you will see in a minute the change. Okay. So let me ask you, have you uncommented that? I mean, in short, at aspect, at component, both are there? Yes or no? Because otherwise, you'll make a mistake, and already we have overspent time. Have you commented? Forget Lombok or no Lombok. Let's do it without Lombok. It is in Lombok. It's just a, what is it called, shortcut. Anything and everything you can do without. So comment that, for example, and here you add a logger explicitly, which will log anything. I mean, the logger object associated with current class. And there is a before advice already said. Save it. Go to that after AOP aspect, and currently let that component be commented. In short, we'll be talking it in a couple of minutes. You got this? Okay. So now please run the application again. What you do is, I run the application again, no problem. And we'll see observe and conclude types. Restarted the application. I have a basic question. Who is printing this info message? Our custom aspect or Spring Framework? Horizontally scroll it and then answer. Don't answer it out of just like that. Who is printing these info messages? Our custom logger aspect, our aspect, or Spring Container, Spring Framework? Spring Container, you know that. So I would say clear the screen. Okay. And go to your this thing, client side. And here, just access the home page. Home page, how will you access? Simply says Spring Boot Web. So when I press enter, what is going to happen? The first request to access your home page is going to be sent. The request will be taken from the dispatcher servlet to handler mapping, and dispatcher servlet will call homepage controllers show homepage method. Okay. So you saw this, nothing out of ordinary. Now take a look at it and tell me. If you hate horizontal scrolling like me, you can take this. I get pretty irritated by this because then it takes us so much time, to come to the point. And tell me, who is printing this information? Wait a second. Spring Container or our aspect? Answer is Spring Container. You can see OSWS dispatcher servlet. You have not written dispatcher servlet. We are nowhere close to it. But if you see this informational message, last two, who has written it? Our custom aspect, I mean our aspect class, or Spring Container? Our logger aspect. Are you understanding? Custom aspect, logger aspect, whatever you call it. The name of the aspect class was com app aspects, user access aspect. Here I'm just doing the dummy because later we are going to enter Spring Security anyway. Check for user access. And now see, you remember with add before annotated method, join point was inserted as an argument. And this is what it is. So I'm writing allowed execution for, and can you see this? What are we looking at? Yes, it is nothing but the method signature of the request handling method, which has been advised. So I told you what, when, where. So this is the where part. This is that point cut part. This is that join point part, which tells you that this particular, client sent the request for our home controller show home page, which was intercepted. Understanding the magic of AOP? Guys, we never added anything. Okay, let me ask you before I say magic and all that. Have we called any logger advice from the controller? No. Yesterday, did we access the global exception handler methods from the controller? No. It was an example of a ready-made aspect. Today, I'm teaching you how to create your own aspects. And you can, if you want, you can definitely add it into your project just to, as a trailer. Just as to show the interviewer that, okay, we have done AOP and we know what aspect is kinds. Okay, so let's go further. So you saw this. So I'm saying here, maybe a line or something as a demarker. And you can check this user login. Check it out. I think now it is kind of repetitive. So same question. Are you able to intercept? Are you able to monitor all the requests are coming from the front end, coming from the client without actually calling it? Yes or no? Answer is 100% yes. And you can try it further. You can see that all these things now it is like, once you understand the point, I hope things are easy. So, there are two requests. One is the original form submission and other is the redirect request. So you can see all of that. So here you can see. So allowed execution for this process login form. And then it is coming as a redirect request. Redirect means comes all the way new request coming from the client to show our topics. And it shows you the full method signature, and a logging report or logging information is available so easily. Understood the meaning? Okay. Now look at the other aspect. So you can stop the application and look at the last one, and we will, I think, take a break before I start you on Spring Security. So now, of course, this aspect is currently useless. It is not even getting reflected because because of which line it is commented at component. So uncomment that. So this one example I'll show for Lombok users. So if you have a Lombok installed and working fine, which is the line I don't require? I don't require to create a logger instance here. That is what it will do internally. Causes Lombok to generate a logger field. And the default name of that logger field is log. Okay, so that is nothing but your logger. Now you are seeing, see, I'm trying to pack a lot of contents in simple demos. So here, in the earlier case, earlier means user access aspect, I can say logger aspect, I can refactor, rename it. Here, I was applying the where clause, that is where the point cut or the join point part only for one advice. So can you tell me in our next aspect, how many advising methods are there? Just count and tell me how many methods you are having. Everyone understood the count? 2, 3. Which ones, guys? After returning, after, and after throwing. By the way, please, you might think that it has to match with that. Absolutely not. Just play with the code. This is what I mean. Otherwise, anytime you have a doubt, just make a change and you'll understand. There's nothing in the method name because you have annotated it. So let me come to the point. So I want to use the same where clause. Which business logic methods have to be intercepted? Three methods. So you tell me, writing it 3 times is easier or writing it once is better? Obviously, writing it once is better, and that is where you can use the point cut annotation. Meaning is the same, but this time, which layer are we intercepting? Controller layer or service layer? It's obvious, service layer, and there are no restrictions. Any method argument, any return type, any method, any class, etc. So you can open and you can see currently there's only one, but you can add customer service, topic service, tutorial service. All those methods will be affected. Affected is the wrong word. Advised is the better word. Okay. So now things are, okay, sorry. So what should be the value? This is your point cut annotation. And here you can, this is little strange. So you have to add a method. Method name can be anything. Typically will be argumentless, and the body of the method will also be empty. So this is how you are supposed to define a point cut definition. This is supposed to add point cut definition. This is the annotation. This is the method level annotation to be added over empty method. We don't add any code here. So now tell me, carrying this execution information is easier or referring it to the method name is easier? In simple English, I'm saying Copy pasting this code is better, or just invoking it by its name is better? Better as in simpler. By the name is simpler. Are you understanding it? So you can see, since I wanted to inject it in 3 different places, this is where I showed you point cut definition. Take your time. All the things I have written in README AOP with examples. So now go a little faster. The moment I say at after returning, tell me, is it going to be called after the business logic method or before? Easy questions, dumb questions. Of course, after. If it results into success or failure or always. Of course, in the success case. You got this? So what is the value here? Point cut definition. Which methods to intercept? All business logic methods from the service layer, and whatever it is returning. So now it will not throw an exception. So there is a special, what do you say, attribute of after returning. See, the name of the argument in the advice signature to bind the return. So guys, in simple English, here, anyone wants to tell me what is the return type of my business logic method here? Easy questions, nothing difficult. What is the return type of this? User. So now make the dots, connect the dots. You tell me what will this returning, what will this result hold if you intercept that method? Nothing but user. So see the beauty or magic or whatever you call it. So log.info already explained. It is saying of this particular method, like I hope it reminds you of your React when you have that string interpolation. So this particular method returned with this value, and which is the method. So when you say join point dot get signature, what will it return? Anyone wants to tell me? When I say join point dot get signature, tell me the line number that it will return. Let's see, 20, very right. This is your entire method signature, including the access specifier, return types, etc., etc. Okay. And when you say result, what will it return? The actual user object lifted from the database. So guys, with minimum APIs, you can get, I can intercept all the service layer methods and I can find out whether they resulted into success or failure. I can say returned successfully. Let's add a word here. Returned successfully with a value. Now you will derive the whole thing. You tell me. You just look at it and then I'll talk to you. I'll ask you. So the first question, this interceptor is going to intercept which layer methods? It's repetitive, so I hope to get the answer. Which layer it is going to intercept? Only service layer. What if my manager walks in and says, no, I want to intercept all layers, all method. Replace this service by star. com.app.star and you're done. Are you getting the flexibility? Are you understanding? Exactly, very right. So coming back to the point, currently not, don't go there. I mean, you can always. So the point is all the service layer method. When? Before the method execution, or if it returns into success, or if it returns after it returns, throws an exception, or in all the cases. All the cases, you can answer similarly and impress your evaluators by saying it is equivalent to finally block, which always executes. So your after advice will always get executed. Now you USL and okay, sorry. So what is it I've written? There's no confirmation that it has resulted into success. So I don't have any result. I just printed the method signature. Quickly tell me, how about this? Which layer it is intercepting? Service layer. Because I'm carrying forward the same point cut using that. And now here it was what? What was the attribute? Returning. After throwing has the attribute throwing. Read. The name of the argument in the advice signature to bind what to what? Earlier it was binding the return result to this. Here it is binding the exception. So this exe can be anything. I can say exe123. Try it out. This can be result123, but please use the same value here. So now tell me, what is it you, okay. So, okay, this, when will this advice be activated or used? In case of failures detected after the service layer method. So service layer method results into exception. This will be 100% called. Everyone after failure, absolutely. And I get to log immediately the exception generated. Understood all of it after returning, after and after throwing. So I'll say something verbally because I've not written that case. There is a fifth advice called as @around. And you will see you can add that @around, or I'll show you. I mean, I'll share that some code. I'll just modify it. And you will see @around gets fired before, after, both or neither. Answer is both. And if you say, I mean, if you decide not to continue to the method execution, you can stop the execution. So I'll tell you the use case. People use it to time the code. So you can add a @around advice and you can start a timer. Okay, timer, not really timer. There is a method, system.current time in millisecond. So you'll get some millisecond value. So you put it before calling the method. And then you again use system.current time milliseconds when the method execution is over. And take the difference. So what it will tell you, the time elapsed. So it is an easy way to profile. Profile means to find out how much time a particular business logic is taking. Okay, so I'll add that also. I did not think of adding. I'll add that as well. So this is all about your aspects. So just confirm. Please uncomment all the annotations. Non-Lombok users, as in unfortunately it did not work. You know what to do. Comment this out and uncomment this and change this variable name to log. So not many changes, and say Control-Shift-O. Okay. So now open this again. I mean, restart the Spring Boot app, please. Confirm this all. Clear the screen and go to your this thing and give the first request. Tell me, don't see the console. You tell me which advices you expect to see. Don't tell me that info messages from Spring Boot and all that. I want our own advice. The before, after returning, after throws, whatever that. After returning, after throws, and after, no, only after. Which one you think? Which one would have been fired by now? This will tell me how much you have understood it. So try it, guys. Don't do this. Only before. Because after advice, I mean, that after advice, I have applied to the service layer. And are we calling any service layer method to show the home page? Answer is no. So please check it. I know it is tricky, but that's what makes it interesting. So only user access aspect, the before advice is being fired. And you know that join point. So which is the only method it has called? Controller layer method or controller has called the service layer? Only the controller. Making sense or feeling lost? Clear or lost? Somewhere in between, maybe. Okay, yeah, that's where your lab session comes in. So now please add a demarker line, separator line, and here go to that, clicking on a link. Again, this is a show form phase, no service layer yet called. Are you seeing this? So all you have got is a before aspect. I've not added any service layer yet. Rather, my controller has not yet called any service layer. Now, give first correct credentials. And now tell me, this is your process form phase. In that processing form, is controller calling the service layer? It's a Boolean question in between. Yeah, I know, Omkar. Of course it is calling. So now tell me, guys, those who are between, are they tending toward clarity? Okay, my English, forget my English. So here, this part you can ignore. So you can see this. This was your before advice. Oh, sorry. Am I correct? Yeah, it is calling the before advice. Here, user controller, process login form. The whole log is in front of you. You can take as much time as you want. And then it is calling after advice, and it should call somewhere the successful or whatever I had written something. After execution. Where was that? I forgot. It becomes too much for me to this. Wait a second. I hate this scrolling business. So let me see, did I change this? I hope returned successfully. I'm looking for this string, guys. You look it out. You know, my searching skills could be bad. Okay. See that pain of horizontal scrolling. So returned successfully. So which what is it called? Which advice has been fired after returning or after throwing? After returning advice has been fired. You got this. And after is equivalent to what? Finally. So after advice is also getting fired. So you can check this and you can see here after execution is also getting called for validate user. And then, so this was a successful branch. Understood all the logging messages. Understood the after and after returning also. Okay. Now let us force the error. Go back and this time give a wrong password. So now don't run it. Give me, because I need to talk to you. So tell me, here the form is submitted to user controller process form. Controller calls service calls down layer. Which down layer? That find by something method. In short, what we will have? Exception or no exception? Will you get an exception or no exception? Of course, you'll get an exception, right? So this time, which before advice is anyway fired for your controller, but after returning, after throwing, all of above, any of above, none of above. After and after throwing. Are you understanding me? See, guys, you are already understanding why you are saying in between. Okay. So, of course, this is good. This everyone understands. And you can check. I hate this. I manage well with the whole thing at a glance. So, you know, so you can see this. Where is mine? So this is your before. So it is tapping. Tapping means intercepting your controller, which is very much fine. This is your, see that, I'll highlight. After AOP aspect, exception occurred. So this is your after throwing advice. And could we take this? Has it given you the which exception? So we had thrown that exception in or else throw runtime exception authentication field. Correct? And here, which is the additional advice which is also getting fired here. You can check this. This is our own aspect. So this is your after advice. Are you getting it? So this is what is largely about AOP. Understood or not understood? Something at least. Got some feel? And let us finish before giving you a break. One summary picture. So here, not here. AOP help, which will be shared with you, of course. One picture makes it clear. And then I'll explain the terms, or you can read the terms. This thing, what is it called? Those terms I've written in the README AOP. So here, this was a different example I had taken. So this was an example where I had written it in a non-Spring Boot environment where I was intercepting the business logic method, withdraw deposit and all that. So let me explain what I had done that time. So container starts. Here also, Spring container is going to create the proxies. I'll come to that proxies in a minute. So this was my logger advice earlier before logging. I had written beginning a transaction again in a before advice. Then this was my business logic. I had forced the exception, thrown some exception. So rolling back transaction, I had written in the after returning advice and the error message and all that. So now understand correctly. with two concentric circles, a circle within a circle, you can understand entire AOP. So start. Client sends a request. Client means end user, sends it to dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet via handler mapping, etc. comes to our controller. Controller will send it to service, or sometimes controller itself is intercepted. So when client sends a request, client is happily thinking that he is sending the request to the actual service layer. But is it really given directly to the service layer, or is it given to the proxy? Answer is, here is the interceptor pattern, the proxy pattern. So who is going to the typical questions? So here, suppose I'm intercepting a service layer interface, service layer. This is the proxy class. Hour ago, I was showing you Hibernate generated proxies for any to many and lazy load scenario. This proxy class is created by the container, Spring container. Proxy instance, proxy object is created by the container dynamically when the method is executed. And what will this proxy, what will this outer wrapper shell will contain? Choices are, already there's answer, cross-cutting concern or the actual business logic. Answer is cross-cutting concern. Whatever you have written in that aspect will be there. So simple question, simple answer. When proxy will intercept it? Only in two advices. Before advice. Before what? Before this method. Before this business logic. Or you can write a around type of advice which is intercepting before as well as after. Okay. So here is the place where container creates a proxy class out of your advice and injects the advice. After the advice has been injected, then the control proceeds to the actual business logic. So guys, this outer layer, outer circle is a proxy container generated, which is full of cross-cutting concerns, your advice logic, point cuts, the advisor, whole stuff. And this is the core business logic for which you are paid. So this is your business logic. This object is called as target. Target is nothing but the object to which the advice is applied, target of an advice. Okay, so that is created by the programmer by implementing service interface. I'm talking about business service. So proxy is the service implementation class created by container full of cross-cutting concern, and target is the class which you have generated. For example, user service IMPL. So tell me, user service IMPL is what? Is it a proxy or is it a target? Simple question, simple answer. Of course, it is a target to which we have supplied the advice through the container. So this contains the core business logic. Now we are on our way out. So on the way out, will it directly send the result, or will you have the what is it called? More interceptors? Of course, more interceptors. So this part is called as pre-processing. Pre means what? Before. So before the business logic executes, this is your pre-processing. What will you call it naturally? Pre-processing or post-processing? Easy questions I'm asking. Post-processing. And at this point, which advices can be fired? If all is well, if it returns, it means business logic returns into success. After returning advice was fired, you saw it a minute ago. In case of error, after throwing advice will be fired. But what about after? Always. Always means what? Finally type. And at around also, before and after. So after these advices, after this cross-cutting concern is applied, then the result is sent to the client, whereas client is totally unaware of that ghostly presence or supernatural or whatever analogy I was giving you about this extra layer. Reach something, 10% at least. So that is about AOP, Spring AOP for you. Let's take a much needed 10 minutes break and continue to the most interesting topic, powerful topic, project tip, Spring Security after 10. See you around. Welcome back. So we are going to the next topic in the sequence. I'm skipping these two. These are, I mean, not skipping as in completely, but here, just a second, wait, opening something else. Okay, so what I'm doing is, we will of course do this, but in the lab time, because it is just a configuration steps and all, and jar file creation. We are coming to the most important last topic in Spring Framework as a Spring security. So before I start anything, let me send you things. I'm just checking whether you require all of this. Anyway, so you don't require this. Maybe. This is for JWT security and all that. I'm just thinking what all you'll require immediately. So you may not require this. Rest all. Let me make a zip of it. Some of the things we are not handling since they are, I mean, your contents are really, I mean, just half a session they have given. 2-hour session, half a session for Spring Security, which is impossible for anyone. So we are spending more time on that than half of this. I'm sending you something, just download it. Yeah, so download extract. And the first one you'll start reading is, or rather we'll start referring is, regarding Spring Security. You let me know when you have downloaded it. Done? Can I start? Anyway, I'm just explaining so you can take your time on it. So what is Spring Security? You can read the first few lines and I'll explain. Okay, so start reading. Let's start understanding. What is it at the end of the day? It is a framework which is ready-made implementation of services for supplying you authentication and authorization. Access control is what? Authorization. But what makes it special is it is nothing is hard-coded. It is extremely flexible. And you will see again with couple of annotations, with a couple of configuration, you can make it work as per your project requirements. Okay. So just recently, not recently, 10 minutes ago, we were talking about aspect. So let me say this properly. Spring security, is it a built-in aspect provided by the Spring security framework, or do you have to write your custom aspects? Built-in or custom? Answer is built-in. What are the 3 different examples? Controller advice, which is your exception handler, global exception handler, transaction management, and security. Exactly. So these are all built-in. But only sad fact, okay, sad or whatever, fact is, it doesn't come directly. You have to add the Spring Security starter jar. So it is just a matter of adding a new jar and you are like done. So we'll see this. So it is the standard, or you can say ultimate standard for securing Spring-based application. And after enjoying Spring Security, you don't require anything other than this. So it focuses on two key areas: authentication and authorization. And it is extremely customizable, extremely flexible. So it will, okay, let me say this properly. So of course it is going to support your needs for authentication and authorization, but some people argue it this way. People say that, okay, I don't require, or I'm taking care of my authentication authorization. Do I still need to apply the Spring Security? Do you want to still add this Spring Security? 100% yes. Because there are so many known security attacks. SQL injection is one of the security attacks. In addition, session fixation, CSRF, clickjacking, you can Google all these. And if you want your web application vulnerable, open, prone to these attacks, go ahead and don't use Spring Security. But on the other hand, if you want the ready-made authentication authorization plus the protection against all these attacks, enter Spring Security. Understood why we are learning Spring Security? It is not only for authentication authorization, it is giving you the ready-made protection against so many well-known security attacks, security, including credential thefts and whatever, password hacking, anything, and so many things it gives you the guard. And the entry point, or okay, let me say this properly before I talk about filter chain. What is the entry point of your Spring MVC framework? We had used it in two places, for web applications as well as for REST APIs. So what is the entry point? Common gatekeeper. Yes, absolutely right. Dispatcher servlet. So what is the job of the dispatcher servlet? Dispatcher servlet is going to intercept each and every request, and it starts your container. It sends the key, that is URL pattern to handler mapping. Then the control comes back. It calls your dispatcher, sorry, it calls your request handling controller. If it is a REST controller, skips the view layer, marshalling, unmarshalling, 10 different things. So if your dispatcher servlet, which is the entry point in the web application, or rather Spring MVC, I'm not saying web application, Spring MVC, do you think this additional aspect, this additional cross-cutting concern of this is a repetitive task, authentication, authorization, protection of the attacks, should you also be, should Spring Security add it in the dispatcher servlet, or should it be kept separate? Separate or within this? Of course, separate. And should your dispatcher servlet be made aware of that ghost, again, the analogy of that separate existence, or should it be done automatically? Answer is it should be done automatically. That is when I'm saying, guys, your Spring Security is integrated or added into your entire web application or whatever MVC application the moment you add a one single jar, Spring Security starter jar. Okay, and for that purpose, listen to this carefully. Your dispatcher servlet is modified or not modified? 100% not modified. But if you remember my last picture I had shown you, proxy and the target. So the target is going to be the dispatcher servlet, and it is going to be advised with security advices using something called as servlet technology. I have not taken this. I'll take it now here. I'll show you here using a concept of a servlet filter. So like how your proxy, the AOP, the aspect was the interceptor before. You remember that picture, two concentric circles. It was intercepting your business request, putting all those, before advices, around advices, and then it was proceeding to the business logic. This servlet filter, I'll show you the picture in a minute. Servlet filter, it's not a single filter, by the way. It's a chain of filters. Filter 1, filter 2, filter 3, and all that. So that filter chain will be fired, yes, smartly, before the dispatcher servlet, after the response, before the dispatcher servlet, after the response is generated, or both or neither. This entire chain of interceptors is equal to filter when it will be fired. Answer is absolutely right, Yogesh. It is both. Okay, so here. So I have not shared that filter help with you. I'll show you here. I'll collate all of this and give you. So servlet filter, this is your servlet filter. I've given a complete readme. Is filter mentioned? Do you require it as a exam? This and all? Generally not. But since the Spring security entry point is through the filter chain, how can you not I mean, you have to understand filter. So this picture does not take you near Spring. This is our first 4 days in Advanced Java, where we had only servlets. Okay, we did not have JSP, Java Beans, Hibernate, nothing. Good old servlets. So take a look at it. Okay, this is life without the servlet. I'm so sorry. This is life without the filters. This is life with filters. Okay, before and after. So focus on this. Client sends a request. We have configured, I've shown you so many different web application listeners, request listener, session listener, context listener and all. This is whole thing is managed by the servlet container. And then the request was sent to the servlet. Here, we used to execute business logic, presentation logic, response generation, that is presentation, and DAO management, everything, and response was sent back. Understood this picture? Left-hand side of the diagram, LHS. We have been doing it for the first 4 days. We spent completely on servlets. So now the question is, if I wanted to add some repetitive logic, cross-cutting concern, which is the place where we had to add it? Of course, a servlet. So now servlet will start containing the core request handling logic. The repetitive logic is equal to cross-cutting concern, both or neither. Important question. What will it consist of in this left-hand side scenario? Will it consist of request handling logic, repetitive logic, cross-cutting concern, both of above or none of above? Answer is both of above. Okay, so it will be bloated. Every servlet, every method, too bloated. Was there any solution before we come to Spring? Was there any solution like an interceptor pattern in the servlet itself? Answer is yes. That is where you enter the servlet filters. Okay, so this part is exactly the same. Now, what are we looking at? This is nothing but your filter chain. Why I'm suddenly showing you filters? Because I can't explain the entry point of Spring security without this filter chain. Okay, so now tell me, whenever the request comes in, is it directly taken to the servlet or is it passing through the chain of the filters? Direct or passing through? Obvious questions I'm asking, no tough questions. Of course, passing through. So this filter is what, I'll tell you. Like how when we write a servlet, we have to implement, sorry, not implement. We have to extend from HTTP servlet class. So in javax.servlet, there is an interface called as filter, and you can write my filter. I mean, you can write a class, public class, my filter implements filter. So this could be having authentication logic. This could be having authorization. This could be having session checking. So now tell me, whatever are the repetitive tasks, whatever is the cross-cutting concern, do I have to write in my servlet and mix it up with the business logic, or can it be kept separate? Everyone understands the point? Of course, it is separation. It is the whole idea is separation. So let me ask you, this left-hand side flow, what will you call? Pre-processing or post-processing? Pre or post? Of course, pre. Pre means what? Prior, before. Before what? Before the actual execution of servlet. And here, now when the response is sent back, the time to send the response back, is the response directly sent to the client or is it intercepted again by the same filter chain? Of course, it is intercepted again. So what will you call this? Post-processing or pre-processing? Dumb question. Still, I'm asking. Post-processing. Okay. So, and of course, it goes to the servlet container and to the client. So you can have, something like I'll tell you, compression filter, where I suppose I'm generating lot of data, lot of response. You can compress it and send it to the client. So there can be so many filters. So filters are nothing but the reusable components added in servlet technology. Understood this much? Understood something about servlet filter component? And anytime you want to know more, I'll tell you. There's a complete readme about it. So why filters? What is filter? What kind of typical filters, use cases, and everything is done. But use, okay, I'll tell you. If you want to read it at all, read till this dotted line. Detailed description is not expected really. But what is expected is here. So are we going to use the, what is it called? The servlet technology, or are we in the Spring technology, Spring framework? We are in Spring framework. Okay. So anyone wants to tell me what will be this servlet? Which servlet I'm talking about? If I change it to Spring MVC, this is nothing but your dispatcher servlet. Are you getting me? I'm just, mapping you from servlet to Spring technology. It is a servlet based architecture. So, and these are the security filters which you are going to see, which fire before or after. And sometimes a particular filter can be skipped. It's not like every filter gets called. If a particular filter, there is a method called as do filter. Okay, so if there is nothing to be done, if you don't require authentication or session tracking or whatever, that particular filter will be not called, and the control will simply pass through to the next chained element. So this is your dispatcher servlet, and these are the security filters which which gets automatically enabled when you add a single Spring starter jar. Understood something? So this was a important point. I can't start a Spring security discussion without telling you about filters. So now you have got that help, security help, and whatever, Spring security, and check this. So look for servlet filter 1A. So this is a very small example, but tells you sufficient thing. So browser. Browser is in client. It can be your front end React app, whatever. It is a React. I mean, it is a, what do you say, REST controller. So sends a request. Is this request directly taken by the dispatcher servlet, or will it be intercepted by security filters? It is going to be intercepted. And this is a very what? Raw form of it. It is not the real one. Real one is in the next diagram. So here it checks, for example, there is a security filter, checks if user is authenticated and authorized. If not authenticated, which is the error code it will send? HTTP 401. But if it is authenticated, but you don't have a permission to access a particular page or whatever, this is forbidden 403. But if both the stages pass, okay, so understand me. Let me ask you, if the user is, not the authenticator or authorized, will this filter chain allow to call the dispatcher servlet and further our REST controller, or will it directly send the authentication response back saying failed, authentication failed? I hope you're getting the point. So this is the capability of the filter. Filter is nothing but an interceptor, nothing but a AOP proxy, nothing but equivalent to a Hibernate proxy, etc. It is an interceptor. So in this case, in the success case, it continues to dispatch a servlet. Rest of the story you know very well. And it will end up calling the controller method and send the response. But if it doesn't work directly, it doesn't even go nearby the dispatcher servlet, the failed response is sent back containing 401 or 403. So this is a oversimplified view. Life is not that simple. This is a, okay, I like to call it as a 10,000 feet view. 10,000 drone view or something. Okay, forget drone, rocket or whatever you call it. So the point is the high level view of Spring Security. This is a closer view. So in real life, there are 15 plus filters. Are you getting it? This is an actual name, actual Spring Security architecture. So client sends a request. The request passes through so many filters. And of course, what I've not added in this diagram is the dispatcher servlet, but it goes to your dispatcher servlet as the end. So important filters for us are, I'm going to show you basic authentication, basic auth this. So basic authentication filter, because that is all is mentioned in your contents. But as usual, for your projective, I have just started. I've just started the topic, guys. So please be mentally prepared to continue with me in the lab. last 2 days. So there is a hope that this is going to end. So coming back to the point, the when I'll give you the project tips, project demo ready made, project separate. I will definitely advise you to replace this basic authentication by something called a JOT. Have you heard about it? JSON Web Token in your web technologies? You not. Okay. So it's fine. It's fine. I mean, it's the same. It's a what? HTTP based. So there is something called as, instead of session based authentication, where you have a J session ID and the cookie and all that, you have JWT. Just Google today and you will see so many good. There is something like jwt.io or whatever, some website they maintain. Anyway, so in that case, you will use username password authentication filter, and there are so many filters which are already configured for us. So this was a okay, not this was a high level overview. This was about the filter chain. And I will say you have understood this Spring security. This is not going to come in next 10 minutes. Sorry, impossible. But when you understand this diagram related to the code, I'll say that, okay, you got some foothold, some basic understanding of it. And I'm telling you guys, no filters means no hiding from you, but it is a big topic. I'm trying to do maximum justice to it so that you will be able to, and I'll give you so many links. Beautiful tutorials exist, video tutorials also. So the coming back to the point, I'll give you that, plus I'll give you my own ready-made demos. So there will be a authentication filter, etc., authentication provider, manager, and somewhere the 90% of it, I'll tell you. Authentication filter, Spring supplied. Authentication object, Spring created, which will hold the credentials, username, password, or it could be email password, etc. Spring supplied, all Spring supplied. But when it comes to, guys, where are you going to store the user details? There's a service called as user detail service. Where do you want to store it ultimately? Quickly. Where do we store the user details? Of course, database. So do you seriously think that, and of course, if it is a JDBC based, still something comes directly, but we are going to use Spring Data JPA based. So this is where we will come in. And you will see, we will write a custom user detail service implementation sometime of today, hopefully today, because tomorrow anyway, there are too many exam topics. And then you'll learn about user details, etc. And so this is the part where we come in. And if you want to configure that this particular, if the URL is having, suppose the URL pattern is /admin, it should be accessible to whom? Simple dumb question. To customers, to anyone without authentication, or only to the authenticated user authorized with the role of admin? Of course, admin role. Are you understanding it? So all that without writing okay, little bit of Java code is there. Let me not oversell it. So the point is, by writing some configuration code, you can instruct. That is what I said. That is what I meant when I said it is highly customizable. So we are a little away from this. So currently we'll just get started. I'll show you as usual, life before, life after. I mean, before security, after security. So follow the instructions, follow them little faster. And I think I lost my power here. Okay, I'm still audible, right? There was a glitch somewhere. Anyway, sorry. So let's create quickly a project, Spring Boot project. And a fresh, because I don't want you to copy from anything. This is a extremely important topic in what you say, in your project, as far as your projects are concerned. So here we are going to create a project without Spring Security starter jar. And then we will see by after adding how it happens, or how the whole flow I've written in that regarding Spring Security note. So start with me. Spring starter jar. These steps you should be familiar with. So I'll say Spring Security demo. I'll say day 21. Spring Security demo. And this is all jar. It's going to be a REST controller. I want you to more practice on the REST APIs. So this is all fine. And here it is a Spring Boot project for basic. Okay, Spring Boot project for Spring security. This is not a JWT demo. JWT demo takes a lot of time to prepare, lot of preparation for Spring security using something called as basic authentication. Basic auth. There is a header, authorization header. So basic authentication. So this is what I'm going to show you over time. This comment and all, you can have it later. Do not select Spring Security Starter because I want to show you before and after types. So select all of these because finally our database, I mean, currently in first 2-3 steps, you don't require database, but over time you are going to require. So add all these dependencies, DevTools, Lombok, validation, Spring Data JPA, MySQL, and Spring Web. There's a next one, security, which we will add later. And you can see next and finish. This should not take time because already your local repository is loaded. Got the project created? Done? Okay. So now, day 21 Spring Security demo. Here, in next 2 minutes, write a test controller which will have 3 endpoints. Which 3 endpoints? Let's say /home. I'm just thinking. Okay, /home, which should be permitted to all the users. /user only for only for the users, or say /customer only for the users logged in with customer role, and /admin for admin users. It just SOPs. Now focus is on not business logic, focus is on security. So everyone knows what I'm saying. So what I'll say is, let's prepare the packages and keep them ready. src main Java, create topmost package, com app controller. Over the time, don't worry, I'm not going to stretch your lunch break. If I start doing that, we'll be here long time. So partly here, just getting you started here, create this thing and keep the other packages also. You are going to require service for that user detail service, the user repository, user Pojo, everything. So just create it fast. You know the ladder, you know the layers, com.app.service. And then you have your, below that, a DAO layer. You can say repository layer, DAO layer, it's one and the same. And then you also prepare the Pojos layer. Sorry. And keep all of them ready, all empty. We will add them after I join the lab session. You have a lot of things to revise till then. So, and if you anytime we want more practice on this, you just tell me. I can tell you that this is what you can solve. Anyway, so this is all the layers. Now pick up, you got it. Later there will be another one called as configuration layer. That is where we will write our Spring Security configuration class. Not now, because I don't have a security jar also. So what is the point like? So coming back to this, go to controller and write with me one test controller. Let's call it as a simple test controller. And our objective is going to be understanding only the security part. So start with the annotations. Address controller, request mapping, I don't even require here. Extremely easy this. Because focus is on some different topics. You can add a logger, by the way. Okay, let's not waste time looking at the time. I was going to add the logger.info. In constructor of class. And here add I'll not write the comments also. I think you are past that. /customer. All I'm writing response body as simple strings. So what is it? Is it test one or something? Welcome customer. I'm just thinking of a mess. This anyway, test one is here. I'm saying return response. Okay. And just have the admin page and the home page. Okay. Let me send you all this. This is nothing. We have done so many complex things. What is it called? D21 something. Whole project. No, not whole project. Java, com, app, controller. Rest all is empty. So, what is the requirement? By the end of the day, what is it we are going to do? End goal, end objective. The end objective is going to be, this should be permit all. This should be allowed to all the users. Any user doesn't log in and all, doesn't authenticate, you should be able to see this. Next one is, this should be allowed to only admin role users after authentication, authorization, admin role. And this should be accessible, this endpoint should be accessible to the customer role. I mean, to the people, to the users who have logged in successfully with the customer role. Understood the basics? What is the end goal? Is it clear? Okay. So now just run this application as a Spring Boot app. See, you should always see the errors. Hurry kills you. It is saying failed to configure the data source. URL attribute is not specified and you have not supplied the embedded data source. Tell me quickly, what is it we have forgotten in a hurry? Absolutely. So how does it know which URL and all that? So pick it up from the earlier project. Any project has it. Oh, this was a Hibernate project. Sorry. So your application properties and paste it in the today's project. A21 SRC main resources. You don't require it for security, but later we are going to do what? We are going to take all these user credentials and all from the database. So port number is fine. We don't require this. I'll get rid of all this. Or okay. Later, anytime you want to uncomment, JPA properties look good. This is not required because this is a REST controller. Remind me to sometime is only today, tomorrow, to explain this open in view session. I mean, open session in view pattern. So that's it, not now. Are we done here? I think. So run the application again and check. You'll take care of your database and the ports and all. So I can see test controller up and running, and just go to your front end, as in test postman 1990, right? And here method not allowed. Oh, method not allowed in the middle of night. Get versus post. So check. Is it welcoming you all to help homepage? Yes. And when I say admin, what is it you expect to see? Will you see the welcome to admin page or 401? I mean, HTTP response 200, 401 or 403? Which response code you expect to see? 200, 401, 403. 200, obviously. Where we have added any security configuration. So, hello admin. Hello customer. So, are we having currently protected resources, guarded resources, or all unguarded, unprotected resources? Protected or unprotected? Unprotected, all open. Anyone can just use it. Have we added any protection against the security attacks? Have we added any security filter chain, interceptors? All answers are no. So let us turn this answer yes in the next minute and stop immediately. Okay, so open your backend, stop the application. And what is it we have to add now to our project? Just to enable all of this, what is the thing? Spring Boot Security Starter. Okay, so we don't have it. That is how I show it before and after times. Okay, so how do we do this? I just want to add one jar. Not one jar. Jar is the wrong thing because it brings in so many jars. Spring Boot Security Starter. Follow the steps quickly. Right click. Right click on the Spring Security demo. Done. Click on, look for the option Spring. And are you seeing the option Add Starter? Take a look at it. Right click on the project, Spring, and Add Starter. Can I continue? After adding the starter, I can't show you. So if you say, please repeat, I can't. Okay, so add the starter. So it is asking you basically which starter. So here, search for golden word security, and you will see Spring Security here. I'm not showing you no, of course, it is too much out of context. Open authentication and all, so many things exist. So just choose the security. So have you added Spring Security now? Is it showing you that selected under the selected section? Okay, don't say finish. There's no finish, by the way. Next it. So this will take time. Anyway, it's a perfect lunch break time. So here it is telling you that this is the dependency. Which dependency it is going to pull in? Starter dependency. Spring Boot Starter Security, which is what is going to be added here. So where you want to add it? Of course, to your pom.xml. So select pom.xml. Are you understanding? Here it is asking you where you want to add the dependency, where else but pom.xml. So pom.xml. And then you will get this button. So it will get added. Where is that? Security starter, basically. Say finish. And here you will see some of the security jars and all. Oh, okay, let me ask you. Is the progress bar showing you the downloading stuff? Has it completed for anyone? Completed it also? So good net speed, whatever. So now it's running, so no problem. I'll show you some things and you can let it. This is a lunch break time, so it's sufficient. Once it is all done, not till that, once it is all done, run this again. Run it as a Spring Boot app, and you will see that so many things have different. You don't worry about that, and you will 100% get unauthorized. Actually, it means really unauthenticated. Okay, check your what is that? Home. Again, unauthorized, guys. Where you have told it is a customizable, flexible security framework, but where you have configured, where you have told Spring Security Framework that you should permit all. There's a method permit all. Anyway, that you should allow the access to this. You are not told. So whether it is a customer, whether it is an admin, all entire project is locked. Are you getting me? So the entire project is beyond access. So have we protected all the resources just by pulling in one Spring Boot Security Starter? Answer is yes. So let it get downloaded and all. You have your lunch and all parallelly. And then whenever I join the lab session, I'll tell you what are the steps. How do you configure? So I'll start with the basic in-memory authentication, where you add everything in the memory, test it out, get the feel. And then finally, by the end of the day, of course, everything will be lifted from database. And that is when you will have a complete idea about this diagram, the detailed flow. That is what is the intention in the rest of the time. So before I log in, please go through the entire whatever we did today, concepts and all that, concepts implementation. Be ready with the questions. After that, whatever revision you want, of course, I'll provide, and then I'll take you to the remaining. Remaining means implementation will start. I have just added the security jar. Real thing will start and will get you properly comfortable in the Spring Security. That will be all. See you around 4.